time for a kombucha lesson. I'm going to do a quick video and then make a photo tutorial with instructions. So you don't have to take notes right now. I'm just giving a super quick overview of the process so you can kind of have a visual for when you're doing it. The equipment you're going to need and supplies are a pot to boil water, some sugar. I use this Costco organic sugar. You can use any kind of white sugar you want, but don't use a brown sugar or a turbinado, anything with the more molassesy content that can kind of gum up your SCOBY, which is another thing you need for kombucha. This is a SCOBY, and what SCOBY, or the mother, what SCOBY stands for is symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And this is a really new one. It's all white and shiny. This is one that's just a couple weeks old. And as you can see, it grows layers and layers and layers. This stuff, it's pretty wild. It's tough as can be. It's hard to rip it. It feels, I don't know, maybe a little organ-like. But all it is bacteria and yeast in a cellulose matrix. And this is what does the magic in your kombucha and ferments plain tea into probiotic, fizzy wonderfulness. So, of course, you need tea to make kombucha. These are black, green, and white teas. They're all from the same tea plant. The white tea is just the first two leaves off the branch of the tea plant, and it's not processed or fermented at all, just dried a little. Green tea is dried a little further, and it gets, it starts rolling up, and it's the rest of the leaves of the plant. And then black tea is the same thing, only fermented. All three types of tea bring different properties to your kombucha. So when I make kombucha, I like to use a combination of all three. So what you'll do, in a pot, put 14 cups of water. You can use filtered water if you have it. You certainly don't need to. It's still going to work. And then 1/4 cup tea total with 1 cup of sugar. Then put the lid on, put it on your stove, boil it, and when it cools, you're going to go right to your next step that we have with cooled tea. In this tea, I put rose hips and rose petals to flavor it, but that was along with the green, black, and white teas. For kombucha to work, it's always got to have real tea in it. So we take our little SCOBY and pop it in there. And this is starter culture of kombucha. And this is just left from my previous batch. You can also use if this is your first time with kombucha, you can use a commercial blend like GT's kombucha is raw and natural in there, and it will form a SCOBY for you. So I put in maybe, an inch or so, just to give the culture to get it started. And then we take our tea and we pour it off and filter it. I use, just a Pyrex and a nice, fairly fine mesh strainer, and then pour the tea. I use a super fine mesh strainer to put it in the fermenting jar. So you'll just do that with the rest of the tea in your jug. Then cover it with a cloth napkin and put a rubber band on it and let it sit. My brews always go about 2 weeks because that's what works for me to do them on Saturdays. Some people like a sweeter brew, so they go less than 2 weeks. Probably not too many people are going to go longer than 2 weeks, or it's going to get pretty tart. The longer it ferments, the more sugar in that brew your SCOBY culture, or mother, they're also called the mother, will ferment and process and eat up. So that sits for 2 weeks. And then you have your finished brew. And all we're gonna do is pour this off, filter it a little bit if you like, and put it in whatever bottles you have for bottling. These are used GT's kombucha bottles. I like the size and shape, and I like that kombucha, so I have a lot of them. So just pull out your little mother or SCOBY. This was just a little starter one I had. There's another one in there. Pour it into your bottles, cap it off, and then cap it off kind of tightly. Then I leave it sit on the counter for another week because that's how it will start to get really, really fizzy. The only caveat on leaving your kombucha to sit out and ferment is sometimes it really gets going, and what you'll want to watch for is if your lid starts bowing like this. That means it's super carbonated and is likely, that one didn't explode. Sometimes it just goes, everywhere. So just watch for that. And if your lid starts bowing, go ahead and get it in the refrigerator. So the last thing I just wanted to talk about in this little overview is secondary fermentation. So as you saw, I had rose hips and rose petals in that blend. That is one way to flavor your kombucha. You do it right in with the tea when you boil it all up. The second way to do it is just to make a plain kombucha with your tea, sugar and water, and then once you're ready, it's cooled, you're ready to put it in the bottle, add something to your bottle. It can be fresh fruit, it could be maybe that much 100% fruit juice. One blend I love is tart cherry juice with a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. I also love elderberry concentrate. That's probably my favorite, and I put in a tablespoon of that, and then fill the bottle with kombucha, cap it tightly, again leave it sit on the counter for a week or so to get that super fizziness. If you don't like fizziness, just put it in the fridge right as soon as you bottle it. So that is the overview and the photo tutorial to come.